Hello and welcome back to the digital part of this week. We are now in Thursday and ready to get the digital part ready and sorted. Made a bit of a cock up yesterday, or a boo, whatever you want to call it. I was an absolute dum dum, and the colouring, the half that was Eddie Brock that I did yesterday, I forgot to save it as a critter file. So what I've had to do is put it onto the older one, which I've already done venom, as you can see here. If I take away that one, no, wrong one. If I take away that there, you'll see, and if I take away there we go, the original, which is on paper, which we've done uncolored now, guys. If you want to go and check that one out and see how I drew this on paper first, then definitely go and check that one out. But today we're going to be digitizing. Like I said, I made an absolute fool of myself, and what I did is I forgot to save this one here as a critter file, and it is a JPEG. And once it's a JPEG, all the layers that I've put in, they all disappear. Hence why you should save it in a critter file. Never save it as a JPEG, guys, before you've completely finished with it, because the layers, as you can see here, I've got quite a few different layers. We're trying to pair it. No, that's the original. I've got quite a few layers. Let's put that blue back. And the layers are actually what you need. So if I was to get rid of that layer there, you'll see that I've already done this piece here. And I did that before. Thank God I did all of this before, because now we've got top layer, which will be venom. And the bottom layer, or the underneath the layer, will now be Eddie Brock, which means we can color in, say I'll just get an green there for a second. That's very black and large as a deleter. We don't want that. So if I was to do something here, and then if I was to do something here, like so, and then grab that green again, and then go under it, which isn't working. That's because I'm painting it on the wrong color. All right. What I was trying to say is if I make another one and add that and call that color, call that one color. An idiot. I'm still sort of learning what I'm doing here. Actually, and I think we'll call that one color. Color that then. So I know which one that is. So we'll call that color venom, and we'll call this one. What should we call this one? We'll call this one underneath. We'll make another one as well, and we'll put that one underneath the venom, because it's going to be underneath the venom, but on top of the Eddie Brock. Let's see if it'll work. I'm not sure if it will, because what you do normally is you outline everything and then you'll have your layers underneath. Because I did what I did, I don't have the layers, unfortunately. So I've got to do it in the old way I used to do it. We'll just basically color over what. Why are you not? Let me. Right, there we go. This is why I do it. Record it, guys. I don't like doing all this live. Let's call that color Eddie. For now, there might be a way of doing it, but then again, I could get, because it's Eddie Brock and all that, I could possibly get rid of all the once I've colored it all in, might be able to do some construction lines. But what I was trying to say with the layers, say, okay, so if we, nope, don't want to double click. Nope, don't want to click that either. Oh crap, what have I done? Oh, I know what I've done. I'm on the wrong tool. There we go. Right. So yeah, we got the venom. So let's get that green again. I'll do a bit of coloring in for green here for venom, and then we'll go to Eddie Brock, and then we'll put a bit of this color, and then it's not gone underneath, but it is underneath. So the difference in the different layers is you can keep the two colors separate without having to really be like gentle or being like faffy and getting these colors all together in, so they're not together, you know what I mean? So like when I was digitizing a moment ago, I had to really be careful around the ear here and around the bottom parts of the neck, because I was trying not to get rid of any of the construction lines, as you can see here, or whether you can see or not, I'm not sure. Hopefully you can. Again, I'm using my camera, guys, but you can see this in well, everything I did yesterday for the eye and such, or part of Eddie Brock. I did all that yesterday. You can check that video out. I think that one's live as well, but I will be putting out a video for how to draw Venom, or the Venom side, in a different video. That one is recorded, so you can see that one. That will be later on in the week. I'll release that one, how to draw Venom himself. But you can see how I did the face yesterday. Again, I'll put the pencil back over the top. You'll see what I've done. This whole here was done in pencil, again on paper. What I did basically is outline everything that I already done. It just means when I go to color this now, because of the mistake, I won't be able to see the shading underneath, and I'll have to sort of wing it. There may be a way of me doing it another way, but that's by the by. We will get that done in another. We'll get that done. It's not the first time I've done this, so I'll get it all sorted out. So let's get rid of that blue. Get some comic storying going, and I'm going to start drawing. If you want to leave a comment at any time today, guys, you can do by hitting that live chat button. I will periodically check the comments to see if anybody is saying hi. But if you're watching back, then you can leave a comment in the comment section and just say hi there. Or just enjoy, guys. Leave a like if you do. And don't forget to subscribe if you're new. My name's Blut084, BLUT084.
You're wrong about one thing. I'm not alone. All of the monsters of evil jump out and are ripping Damon apart. He then tells the monsters, that's enough. Now get lost and only forage for berries or something. He leans down to Damon and says, that's something, isn't it? Seems that we have a lot to talk about, huh? After transporting Damon into a holding cell, he tells Flash that he might want to get a chair. This might take a while. Flash begins to ask why he is able to control the demons, and Damon says, frankly, it's because of the mark. Back in Las Vegas, when you and your friends became marked, there's a process known as the descent, a day when one of the Hell Lords fall farther than the others and becomes a true devil, and Mephisto is preparing for it. He's marking his potential heirs. Flash tells him that he's no devil, and Damon tells him, I'm not either. At least not yet. Once the descent has occurred, one of us will be, or neither of us. Or it could be another marked. Damon then looks through the glass and tells Flash, we're gonna help each other, but if you refuse, think hard about it. Would you rather see me sitting on the throne, or would you rather see a real jerk get the job? A short while later, Flash begins to head over to Katie's apartment to inform her of the current situation and also to thank her. As she sits there, she asks him if he needs something else. He says that he's not done with the DOA yet, and no one knows as much about the supernatural as she does, other than maybe Dr. Strange. Katie says that he would be surprised how much he calls her, but either way, she'll help him. But this is not off the record. She needs to put food on the table. Flash tells her that that's fair, and she asks what is it that she needs to be researching now. He tells her, let's start with the end of the world. Afterwards, Flash calls up Betty to let her know that he's just checking up on her and making sure that she's safe, even if she's still not answering the phone. But just as he's leaving the message, he's interrupted by a transmission from the lighthouse station telling him to report to Colorado. They have a prison break. An individual named Cletus Cassidy. It's only been 3 hours since the prison break, and Flash arrives to investigate what happened. Flash has been through a lot these past few days, but at the end of the day, he still tells himself that he is a superhero. As Flash leads a group of soldiers into the prison, he thinks about all of the cold-blooded killers here, and there's only one person who would take delight in this. Right now, that man is missing from his cell. But as everyone goes to check on Cletus' cell, there's one thing strange about it. The glass was broken from inside of the cell, meaning he used something to break out. A few hours later, at I-25, the police begin to set up a checkpoint on the interstate to try and see if Cletus Cassidy is trying to leave the state. As one cop stops a truck, he begins to notice that this man is Cletus Cassidy. The cop pulls out a gun and he tells him not to move, but Cletus tells him that his new friends went through a lot of trouble to break him out, and he doesn't take kindly to threats. They say that they've got big plans for me. Suddenly, the cop's neck is then slit, and an explosion goes off, blowing everyone away. As Cletus drives off, he smiles, telling them, told ya. Back at the prison, Flash goes over the surveillance video of the attack, and as he watches, he sees the guards being killed by something. and then he zooms in on a falling guard's back. He then sees a small creature, and Flash says that he needs to call this in. He steps outside to make contact with the lighthouse station to report his findings, and he tells them that he will track this, but he will need help on this. And after that, Flash makes a call to Katie Kernan. He tells her to give him anything that she has related to tiny killers. Seconds later, she sends over an article about something called the Prometheus Pit, and it's being built in Houston, Texas. A few days later, over in Houston, the failed clone experiment of Spider-Man known as Kane, now going by the name of Scarlet Spider, receives a call of a burning building with people trapped inside. He jumps into the building and he finds a body, but it's a person who was killed rather than died from the smoke. And this person's death, well, the killer savored in the killing. Kane then sees another man in the corner repeating, "I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry," over and over again. Kane reaches out to grab the man, and the man screams in fear of him. But regardless, Kane grabs him and he escapes. A little while later, Kane learns that the man that was killed was Nell Fletcher. The man he rescued is Ryan Catola, Nell's son-in-law. The only thing that they were able to get out of Ryan is that someone who looked like the Scarlet Spider did this, and that monster's real target was his wife. Over at the Lyndon B. Johnson Space Station, Katie sits with Dr. Catola regarding the rumors about their exploration of a subatomic universe. Katie mentions that she does know that a few years ago her team decided to start back up the research that Professor Philip Prometheus started regarding it. Dr. Catola tells Katie that whatever she may have heard, it is a highly classified situation, and currently, she does not have the time to discuss it. She will call security to escort Katie out. But before she can call security, a voice tells her, "Sorry, they just went off the clock." Soon, Catola and Katie turn to see Clean is skewering the guards, and he jumps at the doctor telling her, "Your husband says hi!" As Carnage leaps through the air, Kane bursts through the window, punching Carnage away from the women. Kane turns to them and tells them to run, but Carnage gets back up, stating, "I guess I'm gonna have to kill you. I'm gonna miss all the jokes!" And Kane jumps in, snapping Carnage's neck. And Carnage says, "Wait, that was different. I like it." One of Carnage's tendrils shoot out, stabbing Kane, and then using the retractable claws in his hands, Kane cuts the tendrils off. Carnage says that he's starting to think that this guy really is a Spider-Man. And Kane tells him that he's about to see how much different they are. Suddenly, Kane's body is electrocuted and he falls to the ground. And Carnage tells him, "Meet my little friends!" And Kane looks up to see a group of little tiny people. Carnage leans in to kill Katie, but before he can, he's shot in the back and Katie yells at him to get away. Carnage turns, grabbing Katie and Catola, and he says that he knows the scientist, but who are you? Katie says that she's a reporter, and Carnage tells her, "I'm gonna give you something to report on soon." Soon, Carnage and the group of tiny people break into the Prometheus room and they begin to activate the pit. The pit begins to light up, and Carnage tosses Katie in, telling her, "You first!" One of the tiny people then tells Carnage that it's time to move out. Remember their deal. But before Carnage can jump in, his arm is webbed up, and Kane tells him, "I'm not done with you yet." Carnage throws Catola in, stating, "Well, I'm done here. Tired of all of you people being so angry. Taking away my towns, locking me up, tearing me in half." He jumps into the pit and he begins to fade. And as Kane screams that he's going to kill him, a voice tells him to step away from the pit. Flash Thompson appears, telling Kane to get on the ground and put your hands on your head. Kane jumps on Flash with his claws out, and Flash tells him, "You may want to rethink that." Flash goes on, stating, "We just need to settle down." But after Kane is yelling, "After you!" Flash tells him, "We saw what Carnage can do. We need to stomp him." Kane steps back, telling Flash, "Never touch me again, or I will kill you. I know all about you, but why is Carnage here? What the crap are those little people?" Flash then explains that those people helped Carnage break out of his prison, and then his words trail off. Kane asks what's going on, and suddenly Venom takes over, and Flash yells for him, "Run!" The tendrils from Venom begin to wrap around Kane, and Kane begins to punch upwards with his claw through Venom's mouth. Venom tries to attack, but Kane jumps up, punching him down, and begins beating into him. Kane tells him, "Stay down," and then Venom's hand reaches up, grabbing Kane's wrist and slamming him into the ground. Slowly, Venom begins to get smaller, and Flash fights to gain control until finally, the suit reverts back to Agent Venom. Kane shouts, "You son of a, what was that?" But as Kane goes on, Flash tells him to shut up. We have a survivor over there. Catola says that they went through the Prometheus portal. They took the reporter to the microverse. She goes on stating that it is a universe that is on the subatomic scale, and there's life there. Flash says they have to go after them, but Kane tells them, "F that. Carnage is gone, so good riddance to that." Flash tries to tell him that Carnage will come back, but Kane says once he crossed into the microverse, that whole thing stopped being my problem. Meanwhile, in the microverse, Carnage says that he finally has a world all to himself now, and Katie says that she's going to die, isn't she? Carnage tells her, "You can't die yet. You have to be my witness, and you're gonna have to live for now." As the micro group watches, the female of the group reports back that they managed to bring Carnage into their world, but they're not so sure about this decision. The hologram tells her that Carnage will do his job. Now they better do their job and bring him in. Back in the Macroverse, Katola finishes the repairs on the pit, but before Flash can step in, Kane walks up asking, "Do you really think that Carnage is going to come back?" And Flash says, "If it's one thing that I learned, it's that the bad ones always come back." So Kane asks him, "At this point, can it get any worse? I know another idiot who always talks about responsibility." And Flash responds with, "Yeah, well, I know a great man who does the same." The two step through the portal, and moments later, Flash wakes up alone. He looks around the new world and he notices little fairies flying around. And one of the fairies says, "It burns!" And Flash notices the symbiote from his boots sticking into the ground. The fairies begin to scream, "Corruptors!" And they begin attacking Flash with sonic screaming. The symbiote begins to rip apart, but as Flash tries to run away, a green beam shoots out, knocking away the fairies. He looks over to see a group of people, and the man leading them says that his name is Arcturus Ron, and they need his help. Elsewhere, Kane begins to wake up stating how he hates everything right about now. And a voice tells him, "Heat is self-destructive. I can feel the rage inside of you." Kane looks up to see a man and he tells him, "Thanks, but what happened? Where is this? And most importantly, who the crap are you?" The man tells him, "I'm called many things, but above all, I am a man and I am preparing." Kane asks for what, and the man says, "To die." Kane turns back to see a giant monster about to eat them, and he says, "Probably should have led with that." Meanwhile, in another area, Carnage looks around a facility called the Body Banks, and he says that he's a little disappointed. He thought there would be, bodies! The female leader explains that this is a flesh factory. They churn out perfect men and women and beasts. And as she continues, Katie tells Carnage that he knows that he's not here as an assassin, right? They brought him to use him as raw material. Carnage jumps down stating, "You're pretty smart. Must be those reporter instincts. But I bet you're going to be real surprised when you know what I'm about to do." A little while later, Arcturus welcomes Flash aboard his ship, and he introduces everyone there as the Enigma Force. Flash tries to say his name, but Flare says that he's the Corruptor, so she would rather not know his name. As Marionette and Flare express their concerns of bringing the Corruptor with them, Arcturus says that it's not up to them. The Redeemer wants to see him. Suddenly, the ship's alarms begin to go off, and Arcturus tells everyone that they have the ships from Marquis Radu's armada coming out of warp right in front of them. Battle stations everyone. Back over with Kane, he begins to fight off the giant monster that was about to eat him. He quickly jumps onto its back and he stabs into it, but as he jumps away, the monster grabs him out of the air and he shouts to the hooded man, "Hey, I can use some help over here!" The monster pins Kane down, and just as it's about ready to eat him, Kane grabs its jaws and rips it off! He walks back over to the man and he says, "I'm not sure if you noticed or not, but I did save us, so a little thanks." But the man stops him and tells him to sit. He will tend to his wounds. "Sure, I'll bite. Who are you?" The man says that he's been called many things, a king, a traitor, and some have even called him the Redeemer, but the names are meaningless. All that matters is his purpose. Kane then asks, "And that would be?" And the man reaches out, touching Kane's head, stating, "I am a healer." Back at the Body Banks plant, Carnage kills off a few people who brought him out, asking if they really thought that they could make an army of Carnage soldiers, because one of him is already enough. But before Carnage can kill another of them, the female leader charges in, stating that she told Marquise that this man was unstable. Carnage jumps onto one and begins ripping him apart, and the female says that he will be dead and they will strip the Corruptor off of him and breed him. Carnage walks over, ripping the electronic snakes out of the female's head, and then he walks over to the man that he has pinned along the wall. The man asks what does he want, and Carnage says that he needs a chauffeur. With all of the things happening, he wants to meet with the guy who's pulling the strings. Over at Arcturus' ship, the Enigma Force fends off against the enemies who are now trying to board their ship, and as the group fights, Flash throws one of the men away, and then another one comes running in with a sonic blaster, stripping Venom off of him. Suddenly, everyone hears a scream, and they turn back to see Venom tearing through everything in its path. Elsewhere, Kane and the Redeemer continue traveling as the Redeemer explains that there is a war going on. A giant mobile base starts walking by, and the Redeemer says that it's Marquis Radu. And as the Redeemer, he has come here to heal the Marquis. Suddenly, the two hear Carnage's voice telling him, "That's really sweet, but I also happen to be looking for the same guy, so the healing plan sounds kind of boring." He leaps off the cliff telling them, "Be real still. I'm gonna make your deaths as slow and agonizing as humanly possible." Back on Arcturus' ship, Venom begins killing everything in sight, like I just said. And that's when Bug tells everyone, look on the bright side. At least the Corrupt is killing the bad guys too. Venom begins attacking Arcturus' crew, and Flash tries to get control of Venom. And that's when Flare starts to sing. Slowly, Venom stops attacking, and Flash says that the song is soothing the symbiote. If you haven't been following our Agent Venom storylines, Flash Thompson is using the Venom symbiote when it behaves and listens to him as a weapon at his disposal. But at times, the Venom symbiote goes crazy, gaining control of itself, and it has no conscience. It just kills everything. But as this battle ends, Flare says that she still thinks that they should have killed this thing, and that's when the alarms start to go off. Everyone on the ship begins to fall as the ship rams into a giant structure. Arcturus gives the order for everyone that is on the bridge to move and get out, and that's when the ship doors burst open. Back with Kane. He tries to fight off Carnage as Carnage has found him and jumped him. But the entire time, Carnage keeps shouting, "More! More!" As Kane punches, the Carnage symbiote jumps off of Cletus Cassidy and bites down on Kane's head. Kane manages to kick him off just as the Scarlet Spider would, and he goes right back to beating Carnage's face. But as the fight goes on, Katie finds the Redeemer and he tells her that the Corruptor's cancer is spreading. Everything is falling apart. The rock that they are standing on begins to crack, and the Redeemer pushes Katie back to solid ground. But while the rock is crumbling, Kane jumps off of Carnage to grab the Redeemer. He will not let him fall. Carnage jumps over to the ledge and he tells Katie, "I didn't see that coming!" And then a blinding light shines down. Soldiers begin descending upon him, shouting for him to stand down. A short while later, Flash Thompson walks over to Arcturus in restraints, asking, "How long is I out?" Arcturus tells him not long enough. This is the part where Marquis Radu kills them. Flash mentions that this guy must be the bad guy. He's seen bad at his time. But Arcturus tells him, well, he's trying to kill God. Marquis then arrives, and soon a voice tells him that the symbiote doesn't believe in those things, does he? A symbiote only consumes, and he would like him to consume God. But as Marquis goes on, the other soldiers begin to bring Carnage in with them, and he tells everyone that this is going to make killing them so much easier. Carnage breaks out of his restraints and he asks, "Why didn't you just say you wanted me to kill? Nothing would make me happier." Marquis tells him, "With all due respect, I'm not interested in your happiness." And he slams Carnage's face down into the ground. Marquis then tells the soldiers to bring Arcturus and his Enigma force to the cells and bring the symbiotes to the banks. As the groups are taken away, Marquis tells Katie to come with him. He understands that she's a historian from the Macroverse. Katie asks what is this all about, and he tells her that the Microverse has always been in war, overseen by a mad god, and he intends to end that. Katie then asks if he's sure that it's not God who's mad, and the Marquis tells her, "Oh, he's sure. Now look." Her head is pushed into the light as she begins to see visions, and Marquis explains that some time ago the Microverse was breached by the symbiotes. Those symbiotes were like a poison. Their mere presence alone break things down. And in the end, as the symbiotes tried to bond with God to consume it, the Enigma Force destroyed the beasts and expelled them from the Microverse. Katie then asks, "Why would you bring them back then?" referring to the fact that he summoned Carnage, which caused Venom to chase after. Marquis says that he wants to be God, and in order for him to be God, he has to kill the old God first. Back on the planet, Kane asks the Redeemer if he's okay, to which he replies with, "I'm obviously dying." Kane then asks, "Okay, beyond that, are you okay?" The Redeemer explains that the symbiotes are a poison to the Enigma Force, and he is the living embodiment of that force. Kane asks, "Why don't you all just leave then?" And the Redeemer says that it's not that simple. If things here in the Microverse are destroyed, then it will destroy the Macroverse, as all things are tied together. That's when Kane realizes how bad this could be. Crap. And the Redeemer adds, crap indeed. Over in the body banks, the soldiers begin to cart Flash and Carnage down the halls. But as Flash looks around, he slowly realizes that the army that they want to build will be out of them. He now sees what Carnage saw. They are building a symbiote army. Once they are secured in, Flash begins to see visions of Venom the symbiote's past. The symbiotes have already taken over planets in the Microverse, and then they were later wiped out by the Enigma Force. And right now, him and Carnage brought them back. Flash watches as the people in the containers begin to squirm as the symbiotes consume them. And just as the symbiotes are a poison to this world and everything that they touch, Flash sees his restraints slowly corroding away, and then they release him. Just as Flash and Carnage break away, so do all of these new symbiote soldiers. Flash jumps to attack Carnage, but as he does, Carnage tells him, "It's said that our kids will have to pick a side!" And all of the clones begin to surround Flash. Everyone begins to attack, and Carnage says that he must be feeling rather impotent, seeing all the clones listen to me! Flash hears all of the voices of the clones. They're in his head, but the venom has been altered and changed, and Carnage is just pure symbiote. So for Flash to have a fighting chance, he has to start thinking like him, thinking real mean. He leaps into the air and he cuts off Carnage's head. But even without his head, the clones begin to attack. Suddenly Carnage hears someone calling out to him, and Kane jumps in, stabbing him. While Flash fights off the clones, he tells Kane that he thought he was dead, and Kane tells him, "You're lucky that I'm not. The The Redeemer tells all of them that they must hurry. The Corruptor is growing stronger and will soon bring both universes crashing down. Kane shouts, "That's right, they're playing for keeps here." And Carnage jumps on his back, pouring himself into Kane's mouth, telling him, "You're mouthy like the other spider." Carnage slams Kane into the ground, and Flash jumps in, grabbing Carnage. As the two of them begin to struggle, Flash slowly begins to gain control, and he throws Carnage away. And as the clones surround Kane and the Redeemer, Flash tells himself that he might be able to control the clones. He just has to remember the beatings that he used to get, all of the bruises, the broken bones, the phantom pain from his legs. Remember everything. And then he lets out a massive roar, and all of the clones fall to pieces. Carnage begins laughing from his broken body. You probably think that you saved the day, but I'm just getting warmed up. Slowly, Carnage's body begins to sink into the cracks, and the Redeemer says that he can no longer sense Carnage's presence anymore. So Kane asks, where could he have gone? Back over in Houston, bodies lay scattered all along the ground, and a close-up of one of their faces shows small red creatures, and those creatures are symbiote clones! Elsewhere in the city, an old man begins to cough, and then he slowly begins to spit up something red. Soon, everyone else begins to scream out in pain as the clones start attacking everything in sight, but on a microscopic level. Back in the Microverse, the Redeemer and the rest of Arcturus's crew get aboard their ship, and the Redeemer tells them that it's time. Before leaving and being sent back, Mari hands Flash some of the sonic weapons that the soldiers were using against him when fighting. In case you were unaware, sonic weapons and fire are the two weaknesses of symbiotes. Mari says that he might be able to use them on Carnage, but Flare says unless he wants to come back, and if he does, he can use it on himself. Even though Marquis managed to escape, it is time for them to return to their world. Suddenly, Flash, Kane, and Katie are covered in light, and they arrive back in Houston. And as they fall out of the portal, they realize one slight problem, one teeny problem, one itty-bitty problem. They're still really small. Flash remembers Dr. Catola mentioning that something like this could happen when they returned, though the effects would only be temporary. Except the problem that they face now is that Carnage has had time for that to wear off. Carnage is now full-grown and begins laughing as he slams down on the three of them. But as they get away, the clones begin to attack. The two fight off what they can, but more and more clones begin to crawl out. And once there is too many of them, Carnage grabs both Flash and Kane, telling them, "It's like you wanted to be killed or something." Carnage tightens his grip, but Flash and Kane begin to glow and shoot out of his hands as they grow back to normal size. The two of them look at Carnage, and they notice that Carnage's size is still much larger, due to him being able to absorb his clones. They begin killing off as many of the clones as they can, but the clones begin to overrun Kane. They begin to bring down our Scarlet Spider. Carnage bites down on Flash, and he tells him, "You need to relax. Just let it happen." Flash pulls out one of the sonic bombs that Mari gave him, and he drops it. He tries to climb back out, but as he reaches the teeth of Carnage's body, the bomb explodes! The blast blows parts of venom off of him, and Kane runs over to help Flash up. But as Cletus starts to get back up without the Carnage symbiote around him, Kane looks at him and pops a claw. In a split second, Kane stabbed Cletus in the eye. The Flash runs over asking, "What did you do?" Kane tells him, "How many has he killed? How many times do we have to lock him up so that he can break out just so he can kill again?" Flash asks him, "What separates us from them? What makes them different? There has to be another way." And Kane swings away, telling Flash, "Get back to me when you find that answer." As time passed, the Prometheus pit was dismantled. Dr. Catola quit her job, and the city grieved over the loss of the people that Carnage had killed. But as the people and the heroes go their separate ways, Flash stands in front of Cletus' cell. The doctors state that after the wound that he received, Cletus has become completely catatonic. He's effectively been lobotomized. Flash asks if this means that he's harmless now, but the doctor says no. The symbiote is still in his bloodstream. Cletus is still the alien's host, which means the symbiote is in full control, and Carnage is more dangerous than ever. Since returning back to New York, Flash spends his time sparring with his somewhat kind of new girlfriend and fellow Avenger Valkyrie, though Flash seems to be holding his own against a Norse goddess as he throws her to the ground. Valkyrie tells him that that's a nice trick that he can do, and then her hands begin to glow. With a quick slice, she summons her sword and cuts through Flash's symbiote legs, telling him that the rules of fighting can change at a moment's warning. As Flash falls back, he tells her that that was cheating. You can't summon a sword from thin air. She crawls on top of him, stating, maybe she should just make it up to him. But before she can give him a kiss, Flash's phone begins to ring. He webs over to it and he tells Katie that whatever it is, it better be important. She tells him that she's over in Philadelphia working on a story that he might be interested in. As she picks the lock to a door, it swings open, and Vapor says to Vector that she thought that this place was supposed to be secure. X-Ray says actually he's a bit more concerned as to who she's talking to, but Vector tells him not to worry. She doesn't know anything to tell anyone. After hearing Katie being abducted, Flash quickly heads over to Philadelphia to figure out what happened. He tracked down Katie's motel room through her editors, and he began his investigation. And as he enters her room, he finds newspaper articles on something called Project Rainbow, something that has this ability to make things vanish. As he reads through the article, the entire room begins to catch fire, including Katie's work. Flash jumps out of the door and he sees the UFOs burning the building to the ground, and he tells him that he remembers them. Guess he made it to the superhero big leagues now. X-Ray says that he knew that reporter was talking to someone. As Ironclad attacks, he tells everyone to make sure that they leave nothing left of the reporter's research. And Flash begins to think about how the last time he ran into these guys, he almost died. And that was when he had backup. He kicks Ironclad away and then he jumps onto his head. And Ironclad says that judo crap isn't going to slow him down. And just as Flash jumps away, he tells him that he knows. He just wanted to see how well his head holds up while there's a grenade strapped to it. The grenade explodes as Ironclad begins to yell because, a grenade went off on his head. And then vapor flies through, releasing a poisonous gas. The symbiote begins to filter out the gas, allowing Flash to breathe. And he tells Vapor that sort of thing really isn't going to help them. But while Flash is fighting with Vapor, X-Ray and the rest of them begin firing down on the motel. Flash swings through, grabbing any survivors that he can. And just as they begin to run, X-Ray fires a blast, cutting through some. Ironclad then starts crushing the ones that escape the building. And Vapor infects the rest of them with his gas. Vapor tells X-Ray that Venom isn't jumping around anymore. Nuke him. X-Ray turns and blasts Flash, burning away the symbiote and then his skin. Meanwhile, an empty warehouse begins to have things appear out of thin air, including Katie strapped to a chair. She shouts that whatever it is they're doing, it doesn't scare her. And Vector tells her that she may not be scared, but they certainly are, or were, whichever the case may be. She looks around to see the other people strapped to chairs, mostly dead. Vector then tells her that there's nothing wrong with fear. They still have a lot of equipment to test. So how about they see what this thing can do to her pretty little face? Meanwhile, back at the motel, Flash lays on the burning rubble, opening his eyes. He stands up as the symbiote begins to retract and return, and he thinks about how the mimicry surprisingly worked out well. Back at the warehouse, Katie says that someone is going to come looking for her, and Vector tells her that he knows all about her and her identities that she uses for her stories, but he doubts that anyone would actually come looking for her. She then tells him that he better hope that this machine doesn't give her superpowers, because as soon as she gets out of this chair, Vector says that he's been running dozens of tests since they found this location. There isn't really any worry about positive side effects. He then asks what he's been doing, abducting people so that he can play alien doctor with all of this bizarre technology. And he tells her that once they found this warehouse and figured out the transduction equipment, they managed to put together some workers. But it's time for them to go ahead with their experiment. An orb in front of Katie begins to glow, and visions of Katie's past start to appear within it. Vector says that she's lucky the machine didn't kill her, but it seems that there is some kind of memory machine dredging up her old secrets. Let's see what happens when someone is overexposed to that. After following a few leads, Flash tracks down a warehouse where the things mysteriously have been vanishing. As he scouts the area, he notices small orbs floating around and watching him. Back in the warehouse, some of the guards mention Venom's outside. Vector then tells X-Ray that he thought that Venom was dead. Maybe they should just bring him inside. Vector holds out his arm, and Flash suddenly begins to materialize. And he looks around telling everyone, hey. He pulls out his gun and sword, telling everyone that they should just skip the fighting and go straight to the surrendering part. X-Ray flies down asking, what is the sword going to do to them? And in response to that, Flash throws the sword and it pierces through X-Ray. He then tells him that the sword belongs to a friend of his, and it's not really part of this world. As the sword hits one of the crates behind X-Ray, he says the sword acts like a beacon too. And as the light begins to shine, Valkyrie rides in, and Flash tells everyone to meet his backup, or in this case, his girlfriend. She stops and asks, girlfriend? And Flash responds very quickly, saving his butt. Okay, saying that might have been a little awkward. Valkyrie begins fighting off the UFOs, while Flash takes out the guards under Vector's control. But while they fight, Valkyrie says that they need to hurry and get the hostages out of there. Flash tells her that there's 12 of them. There's no way that he can get them all out before they get dogpiled. As Valkyrie grabs her sword, she says maybe coming here was a bit implosive, and Flash says recklessness is a gift, you know. Vector tells him that he's had enough and fires a blast, knocking both Valkyrie and Flash away. Flash tries to get up, stating that he can't do this, but then a voice tells him, no, he can't, but he can. And the demon inside of the Venom symbiote begins to take over. The demon Venom jumps up, shooting tendrils at all of the guards. Vector tells everyone to focus their power and slaughter that man. Ironclad says that he may have broke something in Venom's head with that last blast, and Vector says that he doesn't care. That guy is just Spider-Man in a monster mask, and we're the damn UFOs. More guards begin to appear, firing away at Venom, but as he jumps around, more of his tendrils shoot out, grabbing them. And soon the firing turns to the UFOs. X-Ray asks what is happening to everyone, and Vector tells him that it's Venom. He's controlling them. Valkyrie gets up looking around asking, what sort of deviltry is this? And Venom says that he's a little preoccupied at the moment, but she should stick around. He's been feeling a little pent up lately. Valkyrie rides back into the fight, telling him that is profoundly creepy. She rides over to the machine holding Katie and tells her that she's no scientist, but she hopes smashing this device won't do any harm towards Katie. While the guards continue to fire at the UFOs, Venom says that he hopes that they don't mind him commandeering all of the weapons. And if it makes them feel better, the guards didn't like them to begin with. Once Katie gets free of the machine, she goes around helping the rest of the people and tells Valkyrie that it's nice that they can free everyone. But aren't they kind of surrounded by an interdimensional force field? Valkyrie cuts a hole in the portal to the outside, stating, "You were saying?" Back of Venom, X-Ray begins to blast away at Venom while Ironclad grabs a hold of him, telling him that he's about to feel a little pain. But as Ironclad begins to choke him, Venom, the demon Venom, says that he doesn't have to be tough. He just needs to be smarter. Ironclad looks over and sees the guards working and activating some of the machines. Spectre calls out, stating that they're trying to activate the transduction equipment. But before they can stop them, the UFOs then all begin to dematerialize. Outside of the warehouse, Valkyrie and Katie wait for Flash to come out. And within moments, light begins to shine as Flash steps out of the portal. Valkyrie asks if it's the real him, and Flash tells her that the guy who doesn't want to be microwaved, yeah, that's him. So Katie asks him, where are the UFOs? He tells her that he's not sure, but he's guessing he sent them packing. A short while later, Flash stands on a rooftop telling Valkyrie and Katie that he doesn't remember anything about what just happened. Valkyrie says that she's pretty sure that those people don't care what saved them, because if he hadn't shown up, they would all be dead. Katie brings up that he needs to be there sooner next time, and Valkyrie adds that as long as she's known him, he's wanted to be a hero. Perhaps tonight he proved it. But Flash tells her sure, but he's going to be doing it alone, isn't he? It's not like they stuck around long after the fight. Hell, right now, he's just talking to symbiote puppets. Both Valkyrie and Katie's heads begin to change shape and they retract back into the suit. And he tells them good talk. He's actually been talking to himself. As he looks out over the city, he says that he's just a man with a symbiote and a demon. But sooner or later, they're all going to have a little chat. Meanwhile, over in Brooklyn, officers arrive in an apartment where there have been reports of a strange odor coming from the inside. They burst into the home, and as they look, they see bodies mutilated and piled up inside of the middle of the room. One officer aims her flashlight up, and she says, "What the hell is that?" And a body tangled up in veins says, "Don't worry. These guys were all criminals and gang members, so you can thank me later, unless you want to put me on the payroll." The woman shouts that it's Eddie Brock, it's Venom, but Eddie tells her, "You got it all wrong. These days, I like to be called Toxin." With everything that was happening in Flash's life, he decided that it might be best to have a different view on the world and move to Philadelphia. But as the movers finish dropping off the last of his boxes, he begins to hear one of his new neighbors shout for them to keep it down. He heads out to tell the neighbor that he's sorry he had just moved in, but the man doesn't care. He just needs to get some sleep because some people work at night. As the man slams his door shut, Flash says that it's good to meet him too. Then a girl's voice asks if he's the new guy. Flash looks back and the girl tells him not to worry about Mr. Fricks over there. He's normally yelling about not getting to work on time, which he never does anyway. Flash tells her thanks for the tip, and then he asks if she goes to West Philly because he just got hired at the PE department. The girl looks at him and tells him, whatever, she's got places to be. And in response to that, Flash tells himself, look at that, I'm making friends already. As the night begins to fall in the city, it's time for Flash to go out and do some good around the town. Because that's what honest to goodness superheroes do. They patrol the streets and they stop crime, which is still boring as hell. As the patrol goes on, Flash spots a man who left a bar after a woman had turned him down. As the woman walks down past the corner, she sees Flash hanging there with the man, telling her that she might want to make it home quick. After swinging and dropping the man off, Flash lets Venom take over to scare the man for a bit. And he tells him that if he wants to live, he's going to go turn himself in. And if he catches him out here again, well, you know. The man runs off screaming for the police, and the Venom just says, no, no, no. A little while later, off in another alley, a street gang corners a young boy, telling him that his cousin runs for them. There ain't nothing changing that. And the boy Rafe says that his cousin Enzo can do whatever he wants, but he himself does not want to join their little gang. The gang leader says that no one said that he could even join them, but they're both still going to work for them. Members of the gang begin to grab onto Rafe, and as the leader grabs Enzo, a shadow begins to float behind them. A voice calls out, "That's enough!" The chains then begin whipping around, knocking all of the thugs down. And a figure appears before them, telling them that her name is Hail Mary, the Mother Superior of Punishment. All of the thugs look at her, and then they begin to run. Once alone, Flash begins to revert back into his Venom suit, laughing that that was a good one. And the next morning, he wakes up to look at the medicine the Beast has been giving him to help him keep the symbiote in check and under control. As Flash puts the needle down, he tells himself that he won't use this unless he needs to. So far, he's been able to control Venom with very little problems. And now it's time to finally get some rest. A little while later, he wakes up from his nap with the sounds of a knock on his door. He hurries and answers it, and 2 police officers state that they're sorry for waking him up so early, but they wanted to ask if he had heard any disturbances in the last couple of hours. Flash tells them no. Seems like he's a pretty heavy sleeper. The officers tell him that it seems like his neighbor Robert Fricks has been the victim of a home invasion and he's been hospitalized, and it might be a while before he regains consciousness. Flash responds that he's sorry he couldn't be of any help to them, and then he asks himself if he did that. And then he says that he already knows the answer to that. Meanwhile, back in New York at Flash's old apartment, a man knocks on the door asking for Flash to hurry and open up. An older woman walks by stating that Flash has started a new job over in Philadelphia, so he's not there anymore. The man pulls down his hood, and Eddie Brock says, "Oh, that's too bad. I just hate it when Flash skips town like that." After getting cleaned up, Flash gets ready to start his first day of work, but before leaving, he tries to call Katie since she's the only real friend that he has left these days. But just as the many times before, it goes right to voicemail. Before leaving, Flash grabs Beast's medicine to bring with him just in case. Even with what happened to Mr. Fricks, he still feels like he's in control and hungover even though he hasn't had a drink in a long time. Later at West Philadelphia High, Coach Yates introduces Flash as a new assistant coach joining their staff. One of the kids whispers what's he supposed to coach, the Special Olympics? And Coach Yates tells them that he expects them all to show Coach Thompson here the same respect that they show him. Yates then blows the whistle to run drills, and as the students run, Flash notices one of the boys that he rescued the other night. As he looks around, he then sees the girl from his apartment, and he says hello, though he never caught her name. She says that her name is Andy, and knows she will not be dressing up for PE today. As the day ends, Flash heads back to his other job, being a superhero patrolling the streets of Philly. And while out, he notices one strange man and decides to keep watch on him. The hunchback man heads into an apartment building, grumbling to himself as he takes off his overcoat, showing 4 canisters on his back. He then begins eating the dog food that he brought, stating that he's just so hungry, but this isn't working. He walks to the tied-up family, telling them that he's sorry, please forgive him. And suddenly Flash jumps down, tackling the man, telling him that he should give the family a little space. Flash tells the family to hang on so he can get him out of there, and the man says that he can't do that, he needs them. Flash pulls out his gun, and the man's body begins to rip and tear, exposing metal limbs. And he pins Flash down, telling him that he's so sorry for this. But before the man can bite into Flash, Venom's tendrils reach out, pulling the man off of him, and Flash tells him, I think I know a thing or two about being hungry myself. I just gotta keep it in check. Flash then rolls to grab his gun and he aims it back at the man, but the man is already gone. Outside, the man walks through the streets looking for something to eat, and then he spots another man sitting in an alley. He tells himself that they have something in common. They've both made mistakes. And Eddie Brock turns, stating, I was tracking a friend, but it seems like his stink is all over you. And then Toxin takes over, another symbiote, and he says, it seems like we both picked the wrong guy. Ha! Toxin grabs onto the man and he throws him to the side, and as the man lands, the canisters on his back begin to wind up. More skin tears away, and he says, he doesn't want to kill the man, but they won't let him stop. Toxin tells him, that's good for whoever that is, because I want to fight. The man lunges at Toxin, and Toxin punches him away. He then gets back up, jumping away, ripping Toxin off of Eddie, telling him that they can't be stopped. The adaptation matrix is in their blood. Toxin grabs onto one of the man's mechanical arms and tears it off, and then he holds him up over his head. Toxin says, I'm just gonna get one more freak off the streets. And the man's stomach begins to twist and turn, and 2 metal spikes shoot out of him, and they wrap around, stabbing Toxin in the chest. Toxin throws the man off, telling himself, I've gotta go heal now. And as Toxin struggles to heal, he looks back to see the man gone and shouts, you better run. Now it's time to get back to the bait hook. With the sun rising, Flash heads back to his apartment to speak with Beast regarding the man that he ran into the other night. Flash tells him that he thinks the man is infected with something, some kind of alien technology. Beast says, looking over the reports from the encounter with the UFOs, it's possible that he could have been infected by them. Though it's a long shot, they may be able to help him. That is, if the man can be brought to them. Flash tells him that he just needs to catch a flesh-eating monster and bring him back. No problem. He'll get right on that. Later that night, back at the local kennel, the last worker begins to hear the dogs barking at something. As she wants to go check on them, she sees blood everywhere, and the man looks up stating, I'm sorry, I had to feed. He then looks at the woman and says, I still have to feed, and he chases after her. As the woman runs outside, the man follows close behind, and then he stops as Flash webs him up and throws him into a car. The Venom suit starts to assemble his gun, and Flash tells him that he doesn't want to shoot him. He can help if he lets him. And the man says, I may want your help, but it's too late. Flash fully webs up the man, stating, fine, call my bluff for not shooting you. And as Flash stares, he begins to wonder if killing him would be. But then Toxin's voice tells him, mercy killing? From the shadows, Toxin jumps out stating, "I think the man should be put out of his misery, so I'll take care of him, and then we can fight." As Toxin gets closer, he slashes away at Flash's chest, ripping through the suit and into Flash Thompson's chest. He then stands over Flash, telling him, "You may want to pray now." But Flash whips his arm back, smacking Toxin away. Flash tries to crawl away so he can let the wound heal, but Toxin jumps back onto a car, slamming it down next to him. Toxin rips the car in half and he begins walking towards Flash, and Flash opens fire, but the bullets do nothing against Toxin's skin, and he just laughs. Through the pain, Flash jumps up, kicking Toxin in the head, and just as his foot connects, Toxin thrusts his arm out, stabbing into Flash's head. Flash falls back, unable to see if the blood covers his eyes, and then he hears a screeching yell. Both look up to see the man from before jumping at them, and Toxin quickly stabs into Flash and then stabs through the man. As Toxin pulls back, he holds up the man and he starts to open up his mouth. Flash begins to shout, "Stop!" And then one of Toxin's tendrils whips around, throwing him back to the ground. And Toxin tells him, "I admire what you're trying, but you're no hero. Sooner or later, you won't be able to help yourself, and that's when you will die." Toxin widens his mouth and stomp. As the man's body falls to the ground, Toxin turns back, asking, "Now where were we?" Flash jumps forward, letting Venom shoot out, shouting, "You didn't have to kill him." A second jump can be heard, and then one of Toxin's arms flies off. Toxin gets back up, telling him, "Yes, I did!" Then he grabs onto Venom's head, and as Venom's tongue whips out, it cuts off Toxin's claws. Toxin pulls back screaming, and then he towers over Venom, and he bites onto him. Then with one quick jerk, Toxin throws Venom into the air, and he begins to regenerate himself. Venom jumps back up and charges back in to continue his battle, but Toxin grabs him by the head and stabs him through the chest. While Toxin is holding Venom's body up, one of Venom's tendrils crawls out with a needle and stabs it into Toxin, the needle that contains the medicine. Toxin throws him down, shouting, "What did you do?" And he slowly begins to retract off of Eddie Brock. Flash, taking over, starts to crawl away, and Eddie shouts, "We're not done. I'm going to teach you a lesson and show you just how dangerous a monster can be." A little while later, Andy sits on top of her apartment building when she suddenly hears a loud thud. She looks back to see Flash crawling out of the shadows. She runs over to ask what happened, and Flash tells her, I'll be all right. And Andy tells him, "No way, you look like..." But then Flash shouts, telling her, "Leave me alone!" She gets up, telling him sorry for trying to help. Hopefully he doesn't rot up here. And as he lays back down, he tells himself he can't let people get close. That's why he left New York and Betty. Meanwhile, in another part of town, a homeless man kicks over another homeless man, telling him, "You ate the last of the bologna, didn't you?" And as the second man turns back, he sees metal spikes crawling out of his mouth. The homeless man stumbles into another man, but then sees the same thing. The machines start crawling out and affecting new hosts, all reciting that their targets are Venom and Toxin. The next day at school, the students all begin to look at Flash, and he already knows why. The fight with Eddie and Toxin left a nice shiner on his face, and all of the students want to know how it happened. But just as he begins to think about Eddie, he sees Eddie through the crowd at his school full of students. Eddie walks right up to Flash and tells him, "It wasn't very hard to find you. I was a reporter before." Flash tells him that this isn't happening, not here. And Eddie tells him this is happening. "We'll finish what we started. We're going to walk out there, go somewhere isolated, and end this." Flash looks up, asking, "And if I tell you to go screw yourself?" Eddie leans down and tells him, "Then I'll release Toxin right here and now." The two argue whether they're going to fight, but then Eddie smells something. And Flash asks him, "What is it?" Eddie tells him it's oil and blood, chemicals in a rot, just like that alien freak from the other night. Suddenly there's a scream, and everyone looks back to see more of those infected people grabbing onto the teachers. The students begin to run, but the infected people walk down the hallways, killing anyone that they can grab. Flash looks back at Eddie and asks, "Are we going to do this? We can't let the students get hurt. And if you want to kill me, fine, but after we save these kids." Flash then starts directing all of the kids into a room, and Andy asks him, "What about you?" And he tells her, "Don't worry, I won't let anything happen to you." As Flash takes off and Venom crawls out, he asks Eddie, "Do we have a deal?" And Eddie tells him, "Fine, we can kill each other later." The infected roam the halls looking for Venom and Toxin jumps in, biting away at one of them. He tells the other infected, "Don't worry, I won't leave you out of this." Venom then starts crawling into the duct while slamming some of the infected around. But as Toxin is left alone, the infected begin ganging up, tearing Toxin down. Just as they're getting ready to kill them, Toxin shouts, "I will kill every last one of you!" And then there's a sound of cracking coming straight towards them as Venom bursts out of the ground, shouting for them, "Get off!" Venom gets out and he starts running through the infected, tearing them apart. And once Toxin regenerates, he then jumps in, killing off the remaining stragglers. Venom says, "I saved your hide, huh?" And Toxin asks him, "Are you ready for what's next?" Venom shouts, "Do you really want to do this?" And Toxin tells him, "Yeah, I know what it was like to wear Venom. I couldn't control it." Venom then slowly reverts back into his suit. And Flash tells him, "I can control it, because I have to." Toxin leans in and tells him, "Okay." Flash asks, "What?" But Toxin goes on stating, "I'll be watching you." Then when you lose control, I will come back and kill you. Flash looks at him and tells him, if that ever happens, I'll want you to kill me. Eddie reverts back, stating, it won't be an if, it'll be a when. A little while later, the police arrive and then the students are all released from the school. As Flash leaves, a reporter runs over asking what exactly happened in there. And Flash says that he's not sure he has much to say. He was locked away in the supply closet, but he did see some creature. Even though it was brief, it was red and black and covered in something like pasta. But it single-handedly fought off those killer cyborgs or whatever they are and then just took off. It's good knowing that there's someone like that out there and elsewhere in the city. One of those machines crawls out of the ground and skitters away. Since the run-in with Eddie, Flash has returned to his normal life. PE coach during the day, stopping crimes at night, and occasionally he goes to his AA meetings. Day after day, it's the same thing, until one Sunday night, Flash begins to notice something. While taking down some drug dealers in their meth lab, one of them pulled out a gun and was ready to fire. Before he could pull the trigger, Flash jumped on top of the man, telling him that pointing a gun at someone surrounded by a ton of chemicals really is a bad idea. He then goes on to state that someone as dumb as him clearly isn't calling the shots, so he's gonna need some information. The next morning during class, Flash watches as the kids begin their dodgeball practice, but then he notices Andy, the young girl living in his apartment complex, still not dressing up for PE. He calls her out, telling her that if she isn't going to make an effort to dress out, she could at least put away her phone during the class. Andy tells him whatever as she puts her phone away. Dodgeball is so educational. But out on the court, Flash watches as one of his jock students begins to pick on some of the weaker students, making fun of them. As the student laughs, Flash looks at him thinking how he used to be like that, always picking on the weaker students. So he decides that maybe he should take him down a peg or two. He grabs one of the dodgeballs and using venom, he throws it with such a force that it knocks the kid down and across the court. Now, all he has to do is play it cool. This shouldn't be a problem so long as no one saw him throw it, except Andy did see him throw it, and Flash knows that she did. Later that night, he follows up on some leads that he got from the night before with the drug runners. He attempts to stop another group of runners on their way back to see their boss, Lord Ogre. But while trying to stop the van, the runners slam on the brakes, throwing Flash off. As the runners escape, Flash tries to figure out how he's going to catch up now, and then he sees an old broken down car next to him. A short while later at Ogre's hideout, the runners pull up and begin to unload as they suddenly hear an engine revving up. Through the garage door, Flash charges in his venom mobile. He jumps through the window, slamming down two of the runners into the ground, and the rest open fire on him. After taking down a couple more of the runners, one manages to shoot Flash in the head, blowing part of it off. Flash stumbles back while Venom repairs his head, and then he spits out the bullet, telling the shooter he will do it. Venom's mouth begins to open as his tongue creeps out, licking the man's face, and he asks, "Where could I find your boss?" A voice then calls out, stating, "Right here." And Flash sees Lord Ogre. Ogre says that if he's coming looking for him, instead of busting up his business, he should have called for a meeting. Flash tells him that from the looks of it, he's kind of ruined his business. So this will now be the part where he takes him down. The man that Flash is holding begins to tell Ogre that he never would have sold him out. He knows that, right? And Ogre tells him, of course. He was always a good apostle. He lets go of the chains on the two dogs that he's holding, and they charge towards Flash and the runners. One jumps on the runner while Flash grabs the other and throws it into the first dog, knocking them away. He quickly pulls out his guns, and as he takes aim, he sees Ogre has already escaped. Flash tells himself that he couldn't have gotten far. He should be able to. And then he hears a thump coming from the van. He heads over to the van, ready to take down the runners who decided to hide in there, and that's when he sees a van full of people. So not only was Ogre doing the drug business, but he was also in the human trafficking gang. There's only one way to deal with a monster like that. The next morning, Flash heads back to work when a voice calls out, "Venom." Flash turns back to see Katie and asks how. But before he can ask that, she tells him, "You're Flash Thompson, right? You were here when Venom showed up." He tells himself just to play it cool. She doesn't know who he really is and tells her that he didn't really get a good look at him, so he doesn't have much to say. Katie says that that's too bad, but here's her card in case anyone happens to know anything. Later that night, after taking on more of Ogre's men, Flash begins to think about how messed up it is that he hasn't heard from Katie in weeks, and now she's trying to get information out of him? What is she trying to do? Get her next big story? That wasn't part of their deal. After taking down some more of the thugs, Flash tells the kidnapped people to get out of here. He's got some questions that he needs answering without them seeing. Venom's mouth begins to open up wide, and it wraps its tongue around the thug's neck, asking, "Where can I find Lord Ogre?" But before the man can answer, he passes out, and more thugs appear, opening fire on Venom. The men are no match for Flash until he's cracked across the head with a shield. Flash begins to ask if it could be Captain America, but then he sees that it's not Cap. It's some guy called Death Shield. Death's Shield tells Jagged Bow to take his shots so that they can hurry and cash their checks, and Flash tells him that it's normally a bad idea to try and act like heroes. He jumps away and Jagged Bow releases his arrows, hitting Flash, and then they emit a sonic shock. The shock pulls Venom apart, and then the one called Blood Spider jumps in punching. Flash tells him that there's only one knockoff wall crawler in this city, and that's me. Venom starts to take over and knocks him away, but before he can land the final blow, Death's Shield charges in, slamming into Flash. Venom gets back up and grabs Death's Shield, throwing him into Jagged Bow. He then makes his way to the three of them, and suddenly a wire shoots out, grabbing Flash around the neck and electrocuting him. The wire's coming from Constrictor, and with him is Mr. Deathstrike, or Lord Deathstrike, something with death in it. Constrictor continues shocking Flash, and Jagged Bow shouts that Venom was their target. Constrictor tells him no, he's been tracking this for a while. Venom belongs to him! Deathstrike then cuts the wires around Flash, and soon all of the mercenaries begin to fight each other, but before they can realize that Flash has escaped. While swinging through the city, Flash begins to think that with this much muscle under Ogre's payroll, he's gonna have to make a call. He's gonna need some intel. A little while later, in an underground parking lot, Katie says it's like that first time when they met, isn't it? Flash tells her that he knows that she's trying to dig up dirt on him. He thought that they had an understanding. And Katie says that they do, but she also has bosses. Who would he rather have poking around at his business, her or a random reporter? Lucky for him, she's got all of the resources that he needs. Meanwhile, over at Ogre's penthouse, he welcomes all of the mercenaries who have been gathered regarding the hit that he has put out on Venom. He tells them that he knows that it might be overkill to have so many, but that's what he wants. Overkill sends a message. A voice then tells him that he happens to be singing his tune with that, and Jack lies down telling him, I'm sorry that I'm a bit late. I've had some troubles getting a hall pass. With Katie's help, Flash begins gathering resources, making allies, while taking down Ogre's hitmen one by one. However, while Flash slowly takes out some of the hitmen, Jack continues to watch from the shadows, waiting for his next move. Back in the apartment building, Andy sits with her father as the two of them watch TV. But after thinking it over for a little while, she begins to feel how this might be the time to finally talk to Flash about what she saw. She heads downstairs and knocks on Flash's door, asking if he has a few minutes to talk, and the door swings open, and Jack says, I'm afraid Eugene isn't home right now, but I'm actually a really good listener myself. Jack says that he actually should just leave a message for their crippled friend, and use her blood to do so. Andy begins running back upstairs, and Jack and his doll stay close behind her. She runs back into her apartment and tells her dad to call 911. Call anyone! But before either of them can move, Jack bursts through the door yelling, Yahoo! Andy's father tells her to try and get to the fire escape. He'll do what he can, but that's when Flash jumps in, tackling Jack, telling him to stay away from them. Flash knows that if Jack can break out once, he can break out again and again. So this time, he's gonna put him down once and for all. But before he can shoot, Jack says that he would like to say something in his defense, and then he starts spitting a fire! Flash stumbles, and Jack jumps up away at Flash's stomach. But as Jack gets up ready to swing again, Andy's father runs in, pushing Jack away. Jack hits him on the head and starts to walk towards him, and Flash tries to hold him back, but Jack reaches out and stabs Andy's father in the chest. Flash screams, and Venom takes over, shouting, I will kill you! Jack throws down sets of teeth to slow down Flash, and he tells him that he wasn't in it for the money, really. Since he will get some, maybe he can donate it to his orphan's fund. Jack then throws gas bombs at Andy and tells her to catch, but rather than going after Jack, Flash releases some of the venom to cover Andy's face to protect her from the gas. But something else happened, and now Andy is wearing a Venom suit. Andy starts to look at herself in her new Venom suit, asking, what just happened? And Jack tells Flash that he's pretty sure she's talking to him. Andy looks down at the wrench that her father was using to protect her and grabs it, shouting that she will kill him! She cracks the wrench across Jack's pumpkin, spinning it around, and the dolls shout, you're mean! Andy then tears through the dolls just as Jack turns his head back and he sees Flash charging towards him. Once Flash gets close enough, he punches Jack across the room, and Andy follows up, knocking him through the wall. Andy then grabs Jack, ready to kill him, but Flash grabs her, telling her to stop. She shouts for him to let her go. Let her kill the man that killed her father! And Jack stands back up with the pumpkin cracked and chipping away. Flash sees that it's not Jack at all. Flash grabs him, asking, who is he and how did he know?
Okay, guys. Give me a second. Let's get rid of that load disk. What I'm going to do now, guys, is I'm going to end this stream here, and I will come back in about half an hour's time, get everything finished off. Like I said, I'm going to get all of the main color down first, and then what I'll do is I'll do a digitising video tomorrow, but I'll record it. So don't forget to hit subscribe. But the next part I'll be doing live, so don't forget to hit subscribe anyway. And ding the bell so you can come on back and check out what's going on. Otherwise, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you very soon. My name's Balut084, BLUT084, Art and Games. I'm here every single day on YouTube, occasionally on Mixer, but every day and night over on Instagram. Leave me a message and say hi. Otherwise, thanks for watching and bye-bye.